change and stuff like that. So I thought this time maybe we could explore a little more around Menger's methodology. So I sent a couple of pages around from his investigations. So this is the version I've got, and it was on page 58 and 59. If you haven't seen the email, it's well, basically, he's just talking about sort of the different methods. So you've got the natural methods and the social methods, and essentially this extract I thought was quite interesting because it sort of puts them on a level playing field, and it sort of helps you see the similarities between the two methods. But not only that, I think it goes a bit deeper and talks about not just sort of where the Austrians, the mainstream Austrians and stuff, have sort of gone down the potentially different routes to what Menger was saying, but I think it also talks about sort of the way that we see a lot of science in general going down the wrong ways as well, in terms of sort of positivism and looking at things in a very superficial way, trying to measure things and then not really going much deeper than that. Have I don't know if you've all had a chance to read the extract, if you know the bits that I'm talking about, whether you wanted to share what your interpretation of that those 2 pages meant to you, and what you thought Menger might be talking about.
I'll be honest, I haven't got a chance to read through it, so.
No worries, Charles.
Well, I've read it and I found many similarities with what Sandeep has always said about some things like elements in chemistry or in math. Some things in mathematics or even mechanics are not like pure per se. They are not found, for example, gold or silver in a pure form in nature. It's only getting pure with the human involvement, of course, and the same happens with mathematics or mechanics, where some concepts that might lead to, as Chris said, to positivism, because all those things about the equations are not also always valid in all circumstances. That teaches us that we have to see by experience in certain points. For example, what is a point? What is a line? All those things have a meaning only in a specific concept that we might use, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Go on, Sandeep.
Yeah, Nick hit the nail on the head there, in that there are ways to apply general ways of methodology that apply in both mechanics and economics. So, and that's a lot to do with functional analysis, which is it's not a topic that's discussed or delved into unless you go to university. But it's that kind of way of thinking, involving variables, the number of variables, but also how do the variables vary against each other, because they don't exist in isolation. So this is a very involves concept that it's not done at school. Functions are of a single variable. And then even when you go to university, functions of many variables, the variables are considered distinct. They're not considered functions of each other or factors of each other, which they could be, or which they are. So that's a very important thing for us to, concept for us to absorb, that we don't have this nominalist positivism just in economics, but also in so-called science as well. So algebra. This is something that Chris and I are discussing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point, but in a broader perspective, functional analysis has to relate to whatever you might think it's a function of, rather than something extraneous to that, basically. So time is not an extraneous concept to be used as a sort of constant that can be used to make equation or to make manipulation easier. We can't be doing that. That's not the correct way, or the appropriate way of doing maths. And that applies in economics. From our perspective, the bid and offer for a variable involves much more than that variable, but it centers on that variable of whatever the market. So we just say these words, bid and offer, but there is a structure to them that's beyond alphabetic or algebraic, or words or numbers. So that's important, I think, from what you sent, Chris, to absorb from that. It's this way of thinking. We don't have this way of thinking generally, and that's why Antal called his school the New Austrian School. New in the sense of the classical meaning of the word. So it's going back to Menger's way of thinking, rather than just continuing that Misesian view of bonds and interest rates and that kind of thing. So yeah,
I think Menger touches on a couple of really sort of things that really struck me the first time I read this was when he said around, as you were mentioning, Nick, around elements and compounds aren't, found in nature, they're unempirical in their complete purity. And they're not to be observed in nature uninfluenced by human art, which sort of introduces a subjective sort of element to science, which makes us, theories don't exist outside of our own minds. We can't just look at something and interpret and we don't see things exactly how they are. We sort of have to interpret those in our own way. And we've a lot of methodology that you'd see sort of generally is more about incremental. Like the more experiments you do, the more data you get, the more you find out about something. And that's one way to look at it. But then what when you really make progress is when you recognize sort of something more fundamental, and then it completely inverts the entire way of thinking, and you get an entire paradigm shift, which is sort of completely theoretical. And no amount of experiments can do that. You have to think about things properly, and question the very things that people assert as being fundamental. They might not be. You can't take anything as a given. So that's what I found interesting just about that one sentence, really.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on.
Yeah, what you said in the last sentence, that we take for granted many things as a given, because we think about gold or silver or money or etc., and we can't imagine how we come to this, how we come to pure gold after the human. We think gold is just a word, and we take that for granted. We can't imagine the process coming to pure gold, or to 99.9% gold, or even less. And another thing is that the same with the money. We think about money. We take it as granted. Even many people who are familiar with social economics don't really study the books of Menger to see how we came to this concept of money, or to various names of money, or to currencies, etc. We think that all those things, currencies, are the same thing, are called money, which is not true. And another thing is that we are thinking, I think, more in equations, not only in mathematics, but even in economics. And I'm not speaking only with economic theory and all those equations, but even in everyday life, we take the prices of certain goods as something stable, or something that is made by someone without knowing the process of this, or all of this. So we can have an economic thinking without this knowledge. And I think with Menger, everyone who is reading him, he can see what we mean.
Absolutely. I think in like another part of the book, he talks about sort of how do you get to these like fundamental bits, like to build upon. And he talks a lot about sort of breaking things down into their simplest parts, to the point where to refute it would be completely inconceivable. And so when you get to that point, then you've got something there that you can start working with. And it's sort of finding how these pieces all fit together. But obviously you can't do that with any kind of laboratory experiment, because as Sandeep was saying, there's so many different variables and involved. No laboratory experiment can remove every sort of confounding factor. You've got measurement problems and everything like that. So the only way to do it with such precision that Menger's talking about is to think it through, and have thought experiments, and you can isolate it in your mind. That's the only place that you can do it. which sort of find quite profound.
Mm.
Don't forget, they were writing at a time when not everything was known about protons, neutrons, and electrons. So neutrons were not accepted or understood when Menger was writing. So it was just protons and electrons. So they didn't understand, well, physicists didn't understand about process, method, because they still resort to the concept of mass rather than weight. Now, everyone who's done maths or physics GCSE knows that they always speak in terms of mass, and mass is the scientific concept, and it has no proper definition, mass. And when you look at the definitions, they've
it can't be observed.
Yeah. When you look at all of the definitions, they resolve around tautologies in equations. So that's just back to sort of that Randian A is for A, B is for B sort of logic, inverted commas logic. So, you know, we have to remember that they still thought that our galaxy was the only galaxy. So that was only accepted well after Menger's passing. So the concepts, the ways that they do math,
We just lost Sandeep.
Yeah.
I think we just briefly.
thankfully that they do. Sorry,
Oh,
can you hear me?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we just lost you a bit there.
The way to do mathematics isn't understood by physicists. So, and that's evidenced by the way that physicists keep on changing their worldview or their universe view. Earth isn't flat. Our galaxy isn't the only galaxy. So they just change their mind when they've been proven wrong. Year in, year out, decade in, decade out. So Menger was writing at a time when everyone did think the world was created 6,000 years ago. So, well, everyone with a certain background. So we have to remember that fight is still going on. I mean, there are people who think the world was created 6,000 years ago, still, in lots of different occupations. But it's not that. It's that way of thinking that's a problem. Not that they believe that there's a dragon on the dark side of the moon as such. It's that way of thinking that makes problems, because it infects other ways of thinking. This bumpkin way of thinking. So it's not just a sort of a pleasant diversion for us. It's a serious issue. I mean, to talk about the age of the universe in terms of years, it's a ridiculous concept if you think about it. A year is defined in a local concept here. Here as in planet Earth. It's not. It doesn't mean anything outside of our solar system.
Exactly.
So they've got very basic ways in which they're not being scientific. We don't need to go into the equations of Schrodinger or these people. Well, first of all, they think in terms of equations, and the whole concept of an equation is to deal with concepts like mass, which are invariable and fixed. They're not built to deal with true variables, which are varying. That's what they do, they vary. So we have to be conscious of that when we're doing whatever we're doing, that it's like that people do think like that because they're taught like that. They're taught in a very positivist way to as the reason for something happening. A plane flies because it has wings. It's the way that lawyers talk without having any grasp of linguistics. I mean, it's very hard to argue that a plane without wings can't fly, and a lawyer will argue that. And they just miss because they don't understand scientific discourse, basically. So we do have to bear all of that in mind, that we don't need to resort to equations to understand things. Equations are there to manipulate static concepts such as mass, and they don't have the mechanics to deal with proper variables. So A plus B equals C, the general equation, it's not valid. Now, if you say to someone that A plus B equals C, they'll say that, well, that's a general statement. How can it not be valid? And again, it's this positivist way of understanding that's having an influence on the way that they're thinking. There's more to a plane than adding wings to a fuselage and then adding a tail to that. What do you mean by wings, fuselage, and tail anyway? How do you add them? What does plus mean? How do you join them together? So there's more to engineering, there's more to the mathematical way of doing engineering than just trying to resolve things into 2 plus 5 equals 6 or whatever it is. Whatever you want it to be.
Or to have sovereigns equal.
So Menger was on to them. Exactly.
Always, not...
2 half sovereigns equals... Yeah. So we'll get there because it's not applied. Our way of thinking isn't applied well anywhere generally. But we'll get there.
I have a question.
So if you think, yeah, go on, Phil.
I was going to ask, if I feel like we're all fairly on the same page in terms of thinking that that way of thinking is, the way to be thinking. But how did we all get there? Because if not everyone, and how did Menger get there? Because if a lot of people aren't there, then I think it'd be helpful for, you know, a, just an idea of how we all got there, really. Did it just click one day that, oh, we need to start thinking differently, or I don't know how? Can you remember a
question.
time where you didn't think like
The gold age? I don't know.
that?
We've always had a very alphabetic way of thinking. So we've always had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 way of thinking. And it's arguable that that might be just a sort of natural way to think. With a bit of a perversion of natural. But the Vikings thought that all of their rune stuff was sufficient.
Yeah.
And it's only when you need to do something more involved that you realize it's not sufficient. And I think Menger was at that stage. Isaac Newton was. But then again, these people, they were very much also a product of their environment, which was very superstitious as well as sort of scientific. They were very sort of burning witches and sort of that kind of thing. In the context, in conjunction with learning about light and waves and all of that kind of thing. So they were. It's the people who have the guardianship over life and death with their books just have a lot of influence over people and that way of thinking. And it's very much about controlling people. Sort of, don't do this. You'll go there if you do that. And it's just a facet of that, I think.
I agree.
And the academic system, in terms of getting research published and stuff, it's essentially impossible to challenge that, because it's all set up for the institutions and protecting those who are sort of embedded in that way of thinking as well. And it's obvious, but not obvious to everyone. But I think the main takeaway from the thing I took away from Sandeep just then is about process rather than something being static, because nothing is really static, isn't it? You can't. You can't ever isolate something in reality. There's always things going on, changing constantly. And I think when you start thinking like that, then you've sort of you've taken a step in the right direction. It's very difficult to. I'm certainly guilty of falling into those traps, 100%. But I think having that awareness helps, which is what I would sort of say to anyone listening.
Yeah, I think it's like when you've got the time and the space to think and ponder something, you can start going down, you can start thinking like that. But then I feel like for the majority of people that are, going from A to B to C to D, it's just too much for them to, walk into Sainsbury's and question everything that they're looking at, and it just becomes a bit overwhelming, I think. But it doesn't mean that you can't, you can still function in the world, thinking in this way, in a more free way. It doesn't restrict you, I don't think. But it is, it is a little bit overwhelming to begin with, though, I would say. I see a lot of people my age in particular that go and really veer off in strange directions when they begin to start questioning things that they've been taught were just absolutes from birth. Yeah, it'd just be interesting, I think, to know if, I don't know, just a more organized way of getting to that point where you don't get lost along the way. You don't get lost, just, I don't know.
You have to meet the right persons for me.
You do,
Yeah,
you do,
yeah.
you do need, yeah.
And when you, for example, in my case, I never stop examining things, and even when I was introduced, not by anyone, but by me in the Austrian economics, I never stop questioning things and see how they can answer my questions. So with the research, I was introduced to Professor Fekete, and it's not that it was some kind of how it's called. Let's say the light came to me and I saw the truth. It's because I studied him and I studied Menger's book closely that I started to have answers to these questions, because to many people who are in most popular Austrian economics, they don't have the answers. They don't have a theory of money. They don't have a theory of whatever. They don't have a solution to some things. They are just repeating things that were said a century ago, which some were true, some not so true, but they don't have a specific specific solutions to the problems that we can see here. For example, they don't know how, they don't have a theory of gold. They don't know how it came, how all those things that Professor Fekete was saying. They are ignorant of the bills of exchange. And to me, it's that secretly, or because they don't know it, they are proponents of other school of thoughts rather than Menger. For example, I remember reading about the distinction of the banking school or versus the currency school, or the qualitative theory of money versus the quantitative. All those things previously were I didn't know them. So I think that even if you consider yourself an Austrian economist, you have to have some minimum things that you can rely on. You can't be a proponent of a quantitative theory of money, for example. So that's the main obstacle why I can't find any point of reference with other people who are call themselves Austrians.
Yeah.
For example, the main objection about them is that, okay, you're talking about gold. And if a comet came to the Earth full of gold, with a lot of tons of gold, it would, in one day, cause the inflation of the prices, or the price of gold. If you can put twice the volume of gold in the Earth, the prices will double automatically. It's not what they say; it's what they believe. I mean, it's just nonsense. This thing.
It's not a scientific argument.
It's nonsense.
I mean, it's not even a theoretical argument. I mean,
Yeah.
it's also. I mean, if you look at the way that physicists talk about other solar systems which they're examining now, they talk about planets and stars, and the way that they interact, and the way that stars interact with themselves, and all of that myriad of things that could be happening in very reductionist ways, and as if they're very definite in what they're talking about, and it's this certainty that physicists especially have that permeates into other subjects, and it's a false way of thinking. It's a very it leads to accidents and errors. It's not just in the science book or in paragraphs. It leads to real accidents. And physicists especially are guilty of this way of thinking. They resort to concepts like density, which has no basis in mathematical calculation. It seems like such a valid concept as well. I admit it, that density can explain this and it can explain, but it's a positivist concept. The concept of density. It's not a concept. To talk about mass and volume as separate entities and ratios independent of further ratio analysis makes too simplistic assessment of that situation. And anyone that can remember their first science lesson in school will remember that the reason given for why something floats is never density. I remember it like it was yesterday. Buoyancy was the answer. And buoyancy is to do with weight differentials. It's nothing to do with density. So weight differentials, again, is a concept that you'll never really begin to understand if you're taught in terms of math and in terms of equations. So that very first science lesson, the very first week of school, that was the right way of thinking. But it's not taught like that from there on. When was buoyancy referred to or developed as a mathematical concept in school? If it was, and it is so important to understanding why things float. Can you give me the units of buoyancy? Anyone? or how you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Okay,
like
so
what you're saying is making me think there's almost two ends. There's two ends. There's the people that come at things purely theoretically, and then there's the people that have worked back from what is actually happening that you can observe in the real world, and people that are trying to solve a problem like float across a lake. You know, they're engineering a solution, and then they're giving things word. You know, they're attaching words to something that's happening, and then you've got, call it physicists, whatever, that are looking at something that they can't even see and attaching words to it and saying that it's definite and absolute. No.
I'm not saying that we're seeing things that they can't. It's just that
No,
they resort to trying to explain things from what they've seen, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
You know what I mean. You
Yeah,
know, rather than a deeper understanding, they're materialists. They want to understand. They're materialists and positivists. They can only theorize after the event, you know. And we're all geniuses with hindsight.
but
There's more to
that
science.
moment's been and gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's a new situation.
Exactly.
And a new one, and a new one. Yeah.
And this is what physicists they like to resolve everything in terms of equations, because to them that's like using a computer. You just plug in the numbers and then out pops another number.
But they leave it there. They've done their equation. They're not interested in whether, you know, this is the equation for the perfect aeroplane. I'm not going to build it though. I'm not going to fly in that aeroplane. But
they're
here's
not
the
actually
perfect
involved
equation.
in it. Yeah.
No.
They're not involved in the mechanics of making that plane, of doing the engineering. They're not. Their whole, for example, black holes, of which there's so much rubbish written. It's now permeated physics A level. I just picked up a physics A level textbook. What the hell does learning about a black hole, what has that got to do with practical science? Even Einstein thought the idea was nonsense, and it was from Einstein's equations that these people have developed their theories in a mock of the word theory. There's no practice. There's nothing practical in what are you going to make a movie, a Hollywood movie? What is the practical purpose of teaching about event horizons and all of these other nonsense post world is not flat way of thinking? There are many better ways to be doing scientific work.
Well, I would say it just occurred to me that or the majority of the science that I'm aware of that is properly attached to something that is being created in the physical world and used and is in somewhat, it's productive, or it's all protected by copyright. It's all being exploited for, financial gain. So it's not in a textbook.
Yeah.
Because it can't be, because then anyone would be able to read about it, and you wouldn't, the company that paid the guy to, they'd lose their value, in inverted commas.
There aren't two types of medicine. There isn't two. So for one group of people to be thinking in one way, billions of dollars and patents and this kind of thing, and for another group who don't think like that, which is the way to be thinking, there has to be resolution there. Electrons aren't patented. The discovery of electrons or how you discover protons wasn't patented. The decimal expansion system with its base 10 wasn't patented. So all of these things that have gone through the patent office, apart from eventually being a way to see how they do it or did it, it serves no purpose. They wouldn't have done it in isolation to warrant the concept of a patent office anyway. So it's completely, you get what I mean? So
there is nothing new on this earth.
So there's more. There's more. So what will make them think? Well, to put it in blunt terms, to put it in basic terms, the values of their portfolios start falling and things like that. If things start moving in a way that they don't expect, oh, like the price of this could never fall. How can it? You know, the way they've got certain ways of thinking. You know, people who are very much still set in the realm of illusion. They've got very set ways of thinking, and if things start evolving contrary to their expectations, then they'll be forced to think. How can they not be? How can they not be? I mean, they might be woolly-headed, but there's an extent to how woolly-headed the most woolly-headed person is when things start changing like they will be.
Oh yeah.
So there are very interesting movements in commodities markets at the moment and all kinds of things going on. So that will sharpen their interest.
I'm having it at the moment with people that insist that the price of electricity in England will only go up, will only rise. It's yeah.
Well, this is it. This is
the whole power generator utility it's all based on this narrative that it will go up and up and up and up and up every year. Every year.
Well, that's the worrying thing, is that when you look at their business models, they rely on that sometimes to finance what they're doing.
They rely on it 100%. It is, yeah. I mean, I asked a guy the other day who they raised money, they install solar systems on people's roofs, and then they sell the electricity to the person whose roof the panels are on at a price that's lower than the person is currently paying for their electricity. So say it's 15p, but it's a 25-year agreement.
Mad.
25 years. And I said to the guy, I said, so what do you have in this agreement, you know, to protect you against the building owner saying, well, the price has just dropped 3p from the grid on the wholesale market. It's dropped to 3 pence. I want out. What do you do? Oh, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We haven't troubleshooted that. That's not going to happen.
That's
like,
it.
it's their roof,
Mm.
you know.
They haven't thought about that properly.
They just don't want to think. They don't want to think about it. This company's raised 100 million quid for putting solar on people's roofs. I won't name any names, but you know yeah, and that's all of them.
Well,
Octopus, Eon, all the bit. You know, it's all over Europe as well.
mm,
Even Nathan just got back from India. They're
mm.
doing it in India.
Yeah, they're doing lots of dodgy things in not just in India,
No,
but
but
all over the world. But
yeah,
I think it's the way that the property companies deal with um, people. It's unraveling.
mm,
So they're selling things which aren't there,
they are. Yeah,
paying with you're very much paying for it with real wages, and it's not coming to fruition. So it's this this messing up of time space that's manifesting itself now in many ways in current commodities markets. So there are many things going on which are basically right now, as we speak, which are unraveling. Sort of. So it's going to happen, and it is happening. If you think that you're going to get something after 1 month, well, then it might be 2 months, might be 3. Nick has discussed this as well with the building trade and the way they work in Greece with bricks. Is that you do have your bricks, but you don't know when you're going to get them.
I mean, I'll tell you what. I ordered a curtain a few months ago, and on the website it said it was in stock, and then I didn't receive it for 4 weeks, and I was meant to receive it in 2 weeks, and it was a meant to be custom made, handmade curtain, whatever. Called them up. Hi, where's my curtain? Oh, we've rejected it from the manufacturer. We had your curtain delivered, and it wasn't good enough, so we sent it back. And then we had it delivered again, and it wasn't good enough, so we sent it back. And then again, and we sent it back, so it's been discontinued. And I said, well, it was on your website as in stock, but it wasn't in stock, was it? Well, it was in stock, but I was like, so why did you have to have it delivered to your warehouse? Well, that is in stock. It's just so it's in your supplier's warehouse. Yeah, but that's not your warehouse. Misappropriating the word in stock.
I had a
That's
similar experience myself with some blinds. Same story.
That's it.
Exactly the same story.
Bricks in stock, I was just Nathan yesterday was about to order a load of insulation. Company's got 200 and something boards. Nathan needs 170 boards. And it's like, Nathan, I'm saying to Nathan, get those delivered because they will sell you 170 boards and they'll sell all of those boards that they have in stock, thinking that they'll get some more boards back in before you need your boards. But they'll take your money. And then when you try and ask for your money back when you need the boards and they've not been delivered, you then got to find them somewhere, so it's everywhere.
Also, having the same good on multiple websites.
Yeah.
So that's like selling the same thing over and over again. Someone will be annoyed by that.
One warehouse and many suppliers, you mean? With the same, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very common over here. Very common.
I mean, when I was on the way back from the airport to home, the taxi took the motorway, expecting it to be a lot quicker than going through, Hampton and all of that kind of thing, and it was just a chock-a-block traffic jam. I've never seen it like that at 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning is not rush hour, by the way. And when you look at what's on the road, it's these vehicles which occupy so much space, these HGVs. Okay, these things like that. That there was just one after another. And it's sort of like, as I was driving past all of them, I said to the driver, it's this that's making, it's these cars, it's these vehicles that are making the traffic jams. They want to transport much more than is feasible, or much more than was ever wanted by anyone, to build stuff which they didn't want either, which won't even be there when they do want it. Okay, and it's and then about sort of half a mile after I started saying that, there was a trailer with the shed on it that was about like a third of the size of a football field on the back of it. I couldn't stop laughing after I saw that, and the guy driving it, and I was just thinking, what the hell are you all doing? How did you get given this job? Who gave you this job? I know you'll be getting paid 6 figures for it or whatever. That's not the point. Who the hell gave you this as a valid mode of living your life? Because there's more to it than doing this. Okay, I don't want to and I don't want the taxi bill to be half the bill to India, okay, from London either, as it was.
Yeah, who pays for that?
It cost half as much to get home from to the airport, get home from the airport, as it did to get from London to Delhi. So
that's saying
it is
That is saying something.
I mean, luckily it was a black taxi driver. It was a black cab, and he halved the bill, which was nice of him. That's never happened to me in a taxi before, and so I do suggest being upset with an excessive bill. But
were you on the meter?
Yeah, I was. I was on the boundary. This is something I hadn't heard of, but I was on the boundary of the metropolitan area, I was told. So if I was beyond that, I would have had a fixed bill.
Oh, so black cabs within a certain radius have got a charge on the meter, and then outside it can be fixed.
Yes. So I should have got it fixed in retrospect, but never mind.
But it illustrates a good point, though.
It does. And this thing about superposition, well, this is what an HGV, which is 5 times the size of or the length of a regular vehicle, well, you have problems of superposition then. Time, space, occupants. You've got all of these issues that you don't have if everybody is in without naming any brand names, a government car kind of thing, if you know what I mean. One size, the boot carries ample. You can carry lots of bricks in the back of. You don't need an estate car to carry bricks. You can carry bricks in a regular car. So we can do construction without all of this excess, basically, without all of this extraction, without a market. Not that having a market justifies extraction, but if you get what I mean, at the sort of at the moment. So right now in one commodity market, so the issues are to do with the proceeds from refining. So do you get your proceeds when you've sold? Do you get your proceeds now when you hand over the commodity for refining? Or do you get it after it's been refined and sold? Do you get it before or after? Now,
What's commonplace now? Do you get it before or after? I'd have thought you would probably get it afterwards.
I think, well, it depends. In this particular commodity,
I'm thinking gold, but that's just...
I'm not naming names, but in this particular, or these commodities, I think they pay them up front.
Right.
So what if they can't pay them up front and they're used to being paid up front? How does that affect your business?
I mean, it's a risk. It's definitely a risk for someone paying it, because what do you have?
Well, if you're waiting for the refiner to actually refine the thing and sell it for you to get your proceeds, then there's a risk the refiner could go under.
Exactly.
So all of these minor considerations now will be becoming major considerations for certain peoples. And it's not just gold and copper and these things. It's much more than that. What's the value of jet fuel the day before the jet needs to take off? Where do you store the jet fuel? All of these little things, these temporal spatial coordinations which don't happen because of a fiat system, it will be becoming more aware to more and more people. You don't need to be a planet scientist or whatever to figure that there's a problem going on. So it will happen.
I mean, it happens every day, I think. I mean, obviously not on a scale where probably the majority of people realize it's happening or notice it, but that kind of, that, I don't know what you call it.
But they don't, but they can't analyze it, in my opinion, because I see it even in building houses. there are so many places inside the city which are raising apartment blocks, and the traffic is tremendous here. And I found that from a friend of mine that he bought an apartment in an apartment block here, which is not only for him, it's usual here. He bought it before the man starting digging. They sell apartments before even before they demolish the older buildings.
Oh, yeah.
And many times it happens for the certain person that I'm talking, because he who is in this business did not have much capital, so he wanted to get all the cash in advance, then order all the bricks or the concrete and all the iron and all the materials, and then raise the apartment block. And when he, because of that, he had in advance all the money that he wanted. So now he's more. It's more easy for him to build another block and another block. But I found out that half and more of his apartments are now
Not built.
sold. Not sold.
This is
Not
it.
sold.
This is exactly what's going on in India.
Yeah, and some years, sorry to interrupt, some years ago, it's what you said, that the buildings didn't get completed, never. And you see some apartment blocks that are in the middle of the stage for decades, because they didn't know how to proceed with the money, with the materials, and all of that.
I've seen those in Greece, the sort of like abandoned structures. They're sort of like they've just got the shell, and then there's nothing in it, and it looks like nothing's happened for a long time.
Yeah, this is big problem, sort of with all property developers, really, but the way that they operate like that.
And the people must know that how this all works, because now people who have cash, who have money, who have capital, don't have a problem to buy those apartments even before they start constructing them. But there are other people, the majority of the people who are not in this position, who are going to the bank to get a mortgage for that. And they are in a very different situation economically.
There are some people who were relying on it to move into at a certain time.
Or
So
other
all of
buildings
these-
that don't finish in a certain period, that were from the start, and they go back a year or 2 years before they come. They come to finish.
Yeah, this is the way that all property developers operate. It's wire fraud, basically. But councils let them do it.
Yeah.
So this is what's been going on in the Middle East, especially. They've been selling flats like that. And the way they think that people will build regardless of well, they have a slave mentality, but they think that these things will be built and that you won't have half-built. They'll have half-built things there. There are ruins all over Mesopotamia. There have been for thousands of years. So it's not like there's no history for that. and a lot of developers in India as well, selling flats that like this. So that kind of thing is unraveling. It's these ghost flat sales and all of this kind of thing. It's unraveling right now, and yeah, it will get more exciting.
I think the thing what I'm taking is, if anyone wants to avoid all of this nonsense and falling for it all, then you have to start thinking in a certain way about everything. It's the foundation from, it is the foundation. Just a way of thinking that it feels like we're more, what we're talking about more is a way of thinking and a mindset than it is something, specifically just to do with economics or anything like that. It's, that's just my observation.
A lot of people are only interested in the economics because of the making money part of it or whatever.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's the biggest problem.
And there you've, what Nick's saying, where he's struggling to get people, it's like, well, to me, that's why it's like most people are only interested in economics to the extent that they can use it to try and have some edge in the market. But you're never going to.
No.
Really. Not for any sustained period of time.
Not for our purposes, anyway.
No.
It doesn't mean anything.
No, because at the end of the day, you could say, right, well, we see fraud in all of these things. Let's just short everything. But then what are you going to be left with at the end? Something you don't even want.
Yeah, exactly.
A big pile of nothing.
Government bonds, so as if that's the solution. So
you have this with the Bitcoin people as well. It's like you're all obsessed with Bitcoin, but you're obsessed with the price of Bitcoin in dollars. You're obsessed with the price of gold in dollars. You're never talking about the gold. You're never talking about the Bitcoin. You're just talking about the number going up. So
yes, I think all of those computer people are all a bit. They're stuck in a 1950s mindset, sadly.
Well, that's like quantity of money, isn't it? Bitcoin. Oh, it's got a fixed supply, so we've programmed in.
I mean, not validating their planet of gold arguments, but it would still be gold.
Yeah.
If a meteorite of gold struck Earth, it would still be gold. Not to make a valid point of that way of thinking. It's just a silly way of thinking to begin with.
Just give me one second. I've just got to go and do something.
What about the isotopes of gold? What about all of these kinds of... There's more to gold than just gold.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's why I said earlier that those people don't have an actual theory of money to talk about or any solution, because even when they talk about bitcoins or alternative coins or whatever else, you can't have an argument with them. For example, they are in a more subjective way that everything could be money, everything, okay, what Menger said that about subjectivity, okay, but they misinterpreted some views of that. And they say that everything can be money in a sense that even fiat can be money, even state money can be money. You can have an actual argument with them. For example,
that
I
you
was talking with
can't.
with people whom I know for many years. They are interested in Austrian economics, libertarians, etc. And they think that they end up in a solution that everything could be money, that money is nothing but a ticket, and like going to buying a ticket to the airplane. Because the argument is that some airlines sell more tickets than the actual seats. So if you're lucky, you have the ticket. If no, they have to compensate you in a sense, and all that they can't understand what we're talking.
They can't.
Some people are it's better not even worth trying to get through to them sometimes, and it's
Even with the bills of exchange, they think they are working like fractional reserve banking. Another argument that I'm struggling with them for many years. They think that it acts like that, which is not true. For
They
example,
even think they know what they're talking about, which they don't. I mean, it's sort of, these guys, especially these crypto people. We all know the methodology by which you create these coins: prime number decomposition, and they just try and justify things in a very post hoc manner, because it's been done and it has a price. It was correct, and everything they're doing is right.
Yeah.
They have a very lawyer's argument for whatever they're trying to show.
Exactly.
So they're very they're very much like that, sadly, which is a shame, because I'm sure they're smart in other areas.
Yeah,
but they've actually perpetuated fiat, or they've made it as if that's what they intended to do, when their mode of when they justified their existence by saying we're here to destroy it, or whatever they did. They've ended up perpetuating and extending fiat's operation. These crypto people, these Bitcoin people.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for what end and purpose could that be? It's just for more piles of paper. So it's they don't like that argument, though. But that's exactly what it is. As night follows day.
I don't think any of them actually think that they're going to exist in a world where pounds, dollars, whatever doesn't exist and Bitcoin does. I don't think any of them think that. I think they're more just thinking, well, I want to own something that's appreciating against pounds, dollars, and whatever.
Yeah.
That it's
that.
It's just that.
And
just
that's
be honest
the
about
only
it.
reason. Yeah.
Be honest about it.
Not
fair enough.
Exactly. Let them be. Let them do it. Let them let them have their fun. But don't try and don't try and purport it to have a sound economic basis from a marginal utility perspective or anything to do with true economics, because it doesn't. And they do try and tie the two together. And to simple minds, it's very seductive. And simple minds can also be chatty mouths as well. So it's not. They haven't helped the situation. If resolution would have come a lot earlier, had they not been on the scene. Resolution would have come a lot earlier, which there will be. So that's all we can say about them. That's all that needs to be said about them.
And the thing is that some of them understand that there is nothing physical in all of this, as it is not in a fiat money, in a fiat currency, nothing actual, and they don't have a solution to this. For example,
No.
they say that electronic money, is not currency, it's just some digits in your bank account. Okay, but what is your alternative? There is no alternative to that. If we end up saying that all of, especially in these years, that money, that currency is all mostly electronic, that nothing is actual, nothing is physical, nothing you can own. So what's the purpose of all of that?
They don't have satisfactory
Or if you
commentary.
Yeah.
They don't have a satisfactory commentary on any of on anything that you quiz them on. So it's not worth pursuing anything with them. We've got things to do that need to be done. So there are many companies that if what the company is doing is good from a social perspective, then it can be done by bill of exchange. And if it's not, then it can't. So, and that just doesn't, that's not limited to writing out bills of exchange, but that way of thinking as well. So we have to start splitting companies into those which are amenable in their work for it to be done by bill of exchange, and those which can't. And those which can't certainly include general insurers and companies of that ilk. So those companies will form the basis of who unitary councils will be interacting with as the fiat system disappears. So that basis will be that base will be the basis of contractual dealings for any and all unitary councils going forward. So that's what we have to establish over our next few meetings.
And also banks that can work with bills of exchange. For example, most banks here, I don't know in another country, but they are selling the last years so many insurance companies have entered all the banks here. They're getting their money mostly from insurance companies and from commissions. They have commissions to everything, and they sell you insurance, packets of insurance.
That's it. Selling insurance has permeated so many different places where it wasn't before. Well, from our perspective, we don't actually need banks beyond their clearing mechanism. Banks are just agents for dealing in government debt on our behalf, so they don't do anything beyond that. So transferring your government debt to someone else, well, that's the clearing mechanism of banks, but a bank of itself is not actually required for that. The companies can do that between themselves. So we have to remember that's what a bank is in the current environment. It's they're not there to help people per se. So they would be in that bracket of companies that are not amenable to bill of exchange. Their business isn't amenable to bill of exchange formation, even though historically they did deal in bills of exchange. What they do now, being agents of managing personal holdings of government debt, no one who gives any thought to that would say that we need them. So we don't. You can deal with your own holdings of government debt yourself if you want to. You don't need to get Bartlett's bank involved to do it for you. He'll probably try and sell someone a loan on the back of the fact that he's got someone's government bond holdings anyway. So, it's so can their business be done by bill of exchange? How is it amenable to being done by bill of exchange? Does it fit into that or not?
Is that our next discussion?
Well, it'll be our next few discussions, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't think you'd get that in one.
No. So
At least make a
we all need to find, without naming names of particular companies.
No.
Maybe sort of highlighting their functions from a anonymous perspective, but they are real companies. We can say, how are they doing what they're doing? How is it amenable to bill of exchange circulation? How is it not?
Like in invoice factoring companies would be, I don't know, I remember Sandeep mentioned some years ago.
Which companies?
Invoice factoring companies.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if they work
that would
there.
be, I mean, that would be like what bill of exchange circulation is.
Yeah, no.
So it would be like, well, whose invoices are they factoring? That kind of thing. That's what we'll aim for the next few. Find some
Okay.
listed companies, what do they do, and how is it amenable or not to bill of exchange circulation?
Good shout.
Okay. Yeah.
Good shout.
So I think that we can work on that for the next
Meeting.
Has Chris gone?
I think he said he had to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
He put it in the chat.
So let's do that for next time.
Okay. Nice subject.
Perfect. Right.